All right, let's talk about something, well, something that's surrounded by a ton of myths and expectations, the relationship between alcohol and sex. We're going to try and get some real clarity on what's actually going on. You've heard it a million times, right? A drink or two helps you loosen up, gives you a bit of a confidence boost, maybe gets you in the mood. But is that what's really happening? Is alcohol some kind of magic love potion, or is something else going on entirely? Let's find out. So, on one hand, you have the popular idea. Alcohol is the ultimate icebreaker, the key to dropping your inhibitions. But then you have the hard science. And science says alcohol is a central nervous system depressant, which means it slows everything down. So how can it lift your spirits and suppress your body at the same time? That's the big paradox we're going to unpack. Okay, let's start with the fun part, that initial feel-good buzz. Why is it that after a drink or two, a lot of people do feel more open and, yeah, even more interested in sex? Well, it all comes down to a little bit of chemistry happening inside your brain. Here's the trick alcohol plays on you. In small doses, it gives your brain's reward center a nice little shot of dopamine. That's the feel-good chemical. It creates a sense of euphoria, and it quiets down that little anxious voice in your head. Plus, and get this, for a very short time, it can even cause a tiny spike in testosterone. All of that together creates this brief window where, yeah, your desire can actually tick up. But, and you knew there was a but coming, right? That initial buzz doesn't last. There's a very real tipping point where the good feelings start to nosedive and the negative effects really take over. And understanding this is absolutely key. Scientists call this the biphasic curve. That sounds complicated, but think of it like a volume knob on a stereo. At first, you turn it up a little and the music sounds fantastic, clear, and vibrant. That's the stimulant phase. But if you keep cranking that knob, you just get distortion and static, and everything sounds terrible. That's the depressant phase. With alcohol, what goes up must come down. And this table here lays it out perfectly. Down in the buzz zone with a low blood alcohol concentration, or BAC, you might feel relaxed, more social, sure. But as that BAC starts to climb, you see a direct hit to your judgment and your physical arousal. This shows that the tipping point often happens right around that second or third drink. Exactly when your confidence might be peaking, your body's already starting to check out. So we know there's a point of diminishing returns. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of how alcohol physically sabotages the actual mechanics of sex. Remember, alcohol is a depressant. It's literally hitting the brakes on your central nervous system. And think about it. Sexual arousal requires lightning-fast communication between your brain and your body. It needs clear signals and great blood flow. Alcohol systematically slows all of that down. It's like trying to have a conversation on a really, really bad phone line. For men, this slowdown is, well, it's a disaster for performance. It physically decreases blood flow where it's needed most. It also increases a hormone called angiotensin, which actually constricts your blood vessels, the exact opposite of what you need for an erection. The signals from the brain get all fuzzy, and the result is the infamous whiskey dick. It's a very real, very common side effect. And the effects are just as significant for women. Alcohol does the same thing. It reduces blood flow to the genitals, and this is a big one. It significantly cuts down on natural lubrication. That can lead to friction, discomfort, even pain. And on top of all that, the numbing effect of the alcohol makes orgasms much harder to achieve, and when they do happen, they're often less intense. So this brings us to the central mystery of the whole thing. If our bodies are physically shutting down and not responding, why do we so often feel more turned on after drinking? It just seems like a total contradiction. This is the question, right? This is why the myth that alcohol is an aphrodisiac is so powerful and just refuses to go away. It's this crazy battle between what your mind wants and what your body is actually able to do, and alcohol is rigging the fight. The best explanation for this is a fascinating idea called alcohol myopia theory. Myopia just means nearsightedness. So when you drink, your brain gets nearsighted. It can only focus on the biggest, most obvious thing right in front of you, like, say, an attractive person. And it completely filters out all the complicated stuff like risks or consequences or the fact that your body isn't cooperating. All the go, go, go signals are screaming while the, hey, maybe stop and think signals are totally muted. And this isn't just a theory. Check out this quote from the research. It perfectly sums up this disconnect between what we feel and what's real. Women in these studies believed they were more aroused, even while scientific instruments measuring their actual physical arousal showed the exact opposite. Your brain thinks it's go time, but your body has already packed its bags and left. Now, we've been talking mostly about a single night out. But what happens when drinking becomes a habit? Well, those short-term problems can turn into long-term dysfunction. But, and this is important, a lot of the damage is reversible. Chronic heavy drinking is just plain toxic for sexual health. Over time, it can cause actual nerve damage, it can permanently lower testosterone, and it can make anxiety and depression worse, which are libido killers in their own right. It's a really nasty, vicious cycle. And the numbers, they're pretty staggering. One major study found that 72%, that's nearly 3 out of every 4 men with alcohol dependence, had at least one kind of sexual dysfunction. That's huge.
But here's the hopeful part. Our bodies are incredible at healing. Within just 4 weeks of stopping, hormone levels start to get back to normal. By 3 months, studies show erectile function is back for nearly 90% of men. And over the long haul, nerve endings can actually repair themselves and blood flow improves. The body really can, and does, bounce back.
So when you boil it all down, while alcohol might lower our mental barriers, it's busy building up huge physical ones. The science is pretty clear. That boost of confidence you feel comes at the direct cost of physical performance and pleasure. And it leaves you with a pretty big question to think about. If we're relying on a substance that numbs us, are we really connecting? Maybe it's time to rethink what great sex and true intimacy really requires.